Hi everyone, welcome to Brown Girls Happy Hour. And today we have yet another guest with us. His name is Ryan Pelkey, and he has his debut novel that has just come out. It's a children's book, and we are going to be talking to him today about his novel, um, about his novel, about what and what his inspiration was, and everything else. So let's welcome Ryan and let's welcome Daman.
Hi, Kathy. Hi, Ryan.
Hey, hello.
Hi,
Hi
how are you
Ryan.
doing?
I'm doing great. Doing great.
Thank you for joining us today on our happy hour.
I'm glad to do it. It's my pleasure.
We are so excited for you to be here and we are so excited to discuss your book with you. So I guess first we can go ahead and make the cocktail and
Yeah,
then we
let's start
can.
with that.
Okay.
So I have my shaker here with ice in it, and we start with a shot of bourbon and then a little bit of lemon juice. And we need some honey, like a teaspoon,
All right.
and then bitters if you have. This, I guess, is optional for us because this is work from home edition of Happy Hours.
Sorry about that. My dog's barking. Hold on a second. Sorry about that.
No worries. So if you're ready, then we just shake it.
Take it up.
I did not, I didn't have any bitters or anything. I just mixed everything in water and an on.
Yeah, neither did I. I just had
Yeah.
bourbon and beer.
Oh,
And I
nice.
don't have beer, so I'm doing only bourbon today.
Wow. Three very
Yeah.
different cocktails.
There you go.
As always.
Okay, Daman, should we cheers?
All right. Cheers.
All right. Cheers. I like the mug.
Thanks.
So
Okay,
Ryan,
yes.
tell us about your girl inspiration that you chose.
So, my nephew and my brother-in-law lived with us for about four years total as he was growing up, really young. And he used to tell Nick, my brother used to tell Nick, say, "Hey, you're not listening." And he tried to get his attention by saying, "Look at that plant over there. If you don't water the plant, the leaves fall off it. That's what's going to happen to your ears if you don't listen." To try to scare him to listen more. As he got older, he kind of just laughed at him and things like that. He didn't really take him seriously. And a couple of years ago, I was like, you know what? I should really write a book about this because this could be great. I mean, he's listening to all his little stories and things like that. I really got motivated by it and kind of put it off. Pandemic came, kind of put it off. And then all of a sudden I got on Clubhouse and I met all these people that were like, you can do this. You can do anything you want. And so it motivated me. And it took me about a month and a half to get everything done. And this past week, Tuesday, I got to hold the book in my hands for the first time. And it was like, I just couldn't believe it. I mean, I'm the first author on either sides of my family ever. I researched back into the 1800s, and no one else has written a book on either side of my family. And I'm starting to market it to, I have about 90,000 students in my school district, about 100 elementary schools. So I started talking to the elementary school librarians. I'm going to give each elementary school a copy of the book in return to let me talk, to let me have time to talk. My principal I teach middle school, and my principal has allowed me to speak, leave class and go speak to the elementary schools about the importance of SEL learning. It's from a single dad perspective, and to really show that without listening skills, you become lost in a world that's constantly trying to tell you something. So do you need your ears to listen? Not always. So, and that's what it shows in the book.
I love
Wow,
that.
that's an amazing concept, and that's so different from every other children's book that I've ever read.
And I
And
also love the way you're doing it. Like in exchange for a book, you're also talking about it, which is very different from just giving someone a book.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not too expensive for me to do this, but more importantly, I want the kids to be able to have it in their hands. I This past summer I was a middle school assistant principal at a summer school, and so they were my test audience. They were my test subjects. I went into each of the language arts classes and I said, "Do you mind if I read?" And every single class that I talked to, the kids are like, "Can you come back and finish the story? Can you come back and say this again?" And it like made me say, "Okay, I'm on the right path." You know, you always need that little test group to make sure that you're doing the right thing. Is there some parts that I'd like to be able to explore more, or would I like the book to look a little better? Sure. But I was just grateful. I self-published it. There is no way in God's green earth that I could afford to go to a publisher and get this out as a first-time author. So hopefully, you know, I'm going to offer this at like book fairs, and you know, we have a lot of back to school places coming up. I'll even offer it in my school for sixth graders to read. Probably seventh and eighth grades a little above their reading level, but as a whole, it really targets the fourth, fifth, and sixth graders. And to be able to give the book, and it's right here, to my nephew, who I wrote it about. I gave it to him on Thursday, and he looked at me, and I didn't tell him about it. And he looked at me, I said, "Nick, this is about you." And he said, "What?" And I opened up the first page, and it says, "This book is dedicated to the boy who never lost his ears, but certainly seemed to misplace them from time to time. Thanks, Nick, for being such a great nephew." And he like got really red, but then the next day he texted me and said, "I read the whole book," and I'm absolutely happy. So that makes me happy, and it makes me know that I did the right thing. So
That's amazing. And best of luck with your book. I hope it reaches more and more kids because, as I said before, I think it's a great thing. More of us should be taught the value of listening growing up because it's a really important skill.
Oh, I agree. And I'm hoping that I can get this out to fathers advocate groups as well, because single dads who raise their kids is not really talked about too much. You know, you get a lot of publicity for the single mom who struggles to raise her kids, and I'm not downplaying that at all. I support it. But the single dad who, you know, raises his kid and actually shows some affection, has some nurturing skills, that is not talked about in society. You know, there's a part in the book where Nick's dad touches his hand when he's at the emergency room because Nick is scared. He said it's the first time he felt his dad comfort him in a long time. That is huge. That really needs to be, you know, as a dad myself, society kind of doesn't allow us to be nurturing, doesn't allow us to be loving and caring outwardly, you know, and so it really needs to change. You know, we're just as much of a parent as anyone else. I mean, I love my kids as much as everyone else. I'll do anything for them. And I guess growing up, my dad wasn't very nurturing, but I want to break those bonds. I mean, I knew he loved me, but I want to break those bonds.
That's a very important message too. I think you're so right. Like even in Asian communities, like in Indian communities as well, where we're coming from, like men are supposed to be, like fathers are supposed to be tough, right? Like never cry, don't, you know, like don't, like, yeah, they're not supposed to like, you know, calm their children down or anything like that. So that's a really important message too.
Yeah, and also like societies like somehow looks down upon you if you are a nurturing father or like a sensitive father, and that needs to change.
Yeah, by no means is Nick's dad a real sensitive guy, but there's times that I see him and I know that he loves him, and that stuff just shows outwardly, and it touches my heart, and I try to emulate that, and you know, with my own kids as much as I possibly can. So it's a pleasure to be able to share the little things that mean a lot.
That's awesome. And what was the writing process like for you?
It was a couple days just hammering out, just nonstop, putting on some headphones, listening to some lo-fi music, and just saying, okay, I have a frame in my mind, let's put it down on paper. So I put the framework down, and it was just like writing a lesson plan almost. I've been teaching for 22 years, and I said, you know what, I can write these extensive lesson plans. I can write a book. I can frame out the chapters and what I want to see storyboarded in my mind. I can honestly see a movie about this because I can see how it all flows and how each scene develops. And I stopped a couple times. I reread it. One of the most important things that I did is I stood in front of a mirror and reread it. Excuse me. And it allowed me to say, oh, that didn't sound right. So let's rephrase it. And when I was finally done, I was kind of discouraged because I had it in a 6x9 format, and I went in to publish it on Amazon for the paperback, and it kept kicking it back and saying you didn't have enough. And I'm like, I told a whole story. I don't know what else I have to do. And then I read that I can lower it down to 5x8. Perfect. Everything fit. And something I did at the end for kids was I asked 4 questions. I said, based on what you read, what are some things at the start of the book that caused Nick's problems? When Nick lost his ears, do you think he stopped hearing, or did he gain something? When Nick was afraid after he lost his ears, his dad did something very little to comfort him. Did you catch it? What was it? And then finally, how did Nick change once he lost his ears? And I allowed them to have space, almost like a little workbook included into it. That was given to me, that idea was given to me by one of my friends from Australia that I talked to on Clubhouse. And he said, why don't you try this? And it was like a light bulb, and it made sense. And it kind of didn't really fill the pages, but I felt like it was a necessary part. And not many books can do that. I want these kids to have it as not something they stick up on the shelf. You know, I want it to be worn and torn and, you know, read a couple times, shared with other people. So that's what I did with groups, books when I was little, you know, so I'm hoping that'll be the same thing.
Yeah,
I love that
definitely.
idea. That questions, right? Like makes you think a lot about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's the teacher in me coming out, I think, more than anything else.
Yeah, I also think it will be helpful for adults as well. Like a lot of, even me, you know, I don't have like really great listening skills. I keep telling everyone around me I don't have listening skills. So I feel like that would be a really great, you know, book for me too.
And it's
And
it's funny how he struggled, you know, and he realized after he lost his ears, the communication, people gravitated toward him to communicate with him better because they felt like he couldn't hear. And so it's almost like the compassion in people pulled out real quick as compared to when you don't have compassion. I mean, he was a jerk in the beginning of the book. He was very mean to some of his friends and, you know, not paying attention and couldn't understand why people weren't liking him. And then when he lost his ears and he finally came out and said that, the compassion came out. His enemies actually communicated with him, and he felt his defenses come down and communicated back and developed friendships with them. And I feel like that was important as well. That our
yeah,
You know, a
disabilities
lot
don't
of
define
people
us.
are coming to my mind who I want to give this book to.
By all means, by all means. That's. I mean, I didn't write it to make money. I didn't get into teaching to make money. I did it to make a difference, and hopefully, you know, something like this will make a difference in
yeah.
someone's life, one way or another.
And
And
if
this might
we
lead
do
to
want
more.
to buy, Ryan, where is it available?
If you search my name on Amazon, Ryan Pelkey on Amazon, it's the first one that comes up. I've made QR codes. I mean, I've linked it to a lot of different things on my social media. So it's all my social media handles is at @mr_Pelkey, Pelkey. You can find all that stuff on there. I try not to flood, but at the same time, I know I'm my only advocate. I'm my own cheerleader. I have to be my own cheerleader because no one else can do it for me. And, you know, I really learned that with the Clubhouse app because I feel like someone listened because I spoke. Someone actually paid attention because I opened my mouth. For 22 years, I felt like I was just a PE teacher. I was just a gym teacher. I was just a coach, and I didn't have any value. Even though I have a master's degree, I want to get into academic administration. I felt like I didn't have any value because no one was listening to me. When I would raise my hand at meetings, no one would talk to me. So when I got on a Clubhouse and people were like, hey, that's a great point. I appreciate that. It made me feel valued. I would get done with leading rooms and like fist bump like I just won a game because it was like, finally, I'm finding my voice. Other people are hearing it and they value it. And I value other people. And it's becoming more of a social thing for me too. I had horrible social skills. I'm around kids all day. As dealing with adults, oh my gosh, you know, it's impossible.
We have a message for Ryan.
The educator's closet is because of you. You have made a huge difference. We got a comment. So you know, yeah, you actually also made a really great point because a lot of the times we don't know what our stories are doing to everyone else, like what effect they're having on everyone else. Like we're just so unaware of that until we start speaking about it, until we start, talking to other people about it. And then we realize that, yes, like every human being is capable of making a difference.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so that's really important.
And I wanted to recognize Andrea for that. She's the Educators Closet is the group I run in Clubhouse, and it's something I started, but it's not my club. It's everyone's club. And I really like to stress that. So.
Yeah, I have been a part of that because I'm also into ed tech, and I'm also very interested in education and how learning happens and stuff. And it's a great club. Like all the insights that I get from that, it's amazing. Like the members are great and the conversations are awesome. Yeah.
I mean, we do fun stuff in there, but we also talk about non-instructional things. I started out talking about dress code with teachers, and that's coming from someone that wears shorts every day. I really feel like the attitude needs to change across the board, but that's a whole different other topic. Professionalism is key. I did a tie drive a couple of years ago. I raised 1,900 ties for kids in my school.
Oh, wow.
I got them from all over the United States and Canada and Mexico. Got them shipped in, got on the news, the whole nine with that. My hustle is strong, but it's for a right reason. I really feel like that kind of kickstarted like a kind of awakening. I saw a need. And I said, let's do something about it. So we did it. And it's leading to this. It's leading to other speaking opportunities. I worked with Andrew Tai a couple of weeks ago with his Rejuvenate conference in Malaysia. I told my teachers at school, I'm like, yeah, I'm speaking in Malaysia this weekend. And they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, like you're just a PE teacher. I said, shut up. The word just is a dirty word. The word is, it's a very dirty word. I'm not just a PE teacher. I am so much more. And I told them they are so much more. Open your mouth. You never know what'll come out with it. Good, bad, or indifferent. At least you got to speak.
Definitely. Yeah.
That's a great point. I think our language does disservice a lot of times. Words like just or but, like we should use and instead of but. Like you can be an engineer and an artistic person, right? There's no need to have a but in there.
Oh yeah, and just simple stuff like how I teach class. I teach integrated PE. I don't teach just rolling the ball out and playing basketball. This past week, we used playing cards for fitness activities, and the kids had to count, and they had to do math skills. They had to do cooperation and a lot more. I involve music every day. It's something that when they walk out of there, they always say, man, we had a great time in class, and that's been like that for 22 years. I've really dug into that and believe that you can bring anything that's in the classroom, you can bring in a gymnasium, and kids will learn it faster and have more of an impact because they'll have fun doing it. Excuse me.
Right. Yeah. And I want to come back to, so you said that your favorite female icon is Mildred. Okay, I don't remember.
So they call her Babe. It's Mildred Ella Didrikson Zaharis. They call her Babe because back in the 20s, she would go out and play baseball with the boys and was like the leading home run hitter. She was one of those athletes, those one-of-a-kind athletes that you can never come once in their lifetime. She could do it all. And the reason why I gravitated toward her is because as I was, over the last 20 years, I would see athletes, student athletes, and they would be real good at soccer, or they'd be real good at basketball, and it'd say, here's a golf stick. Here's a set of clubs. What can you do with it? The first shot, boom. And those God-given athletes, you can't train, you can't teach. And she was one of them. She was born in like 1911, but she ended up watching the Olympics in 1928 and said, I can do that. And so she did. She went out and got 2 Olympic medals in 32 in the javelin. And then the next thing was like, oh, I think I'm going to golf. And then for the next 25 years or so, she was an incredible golfer, won all these titles. She was diagnosed with cancer and still went out and won a golf title. She's one of the most decorated female athletes ever. And I really try to stress with my students that she's a full athlete. She could do anything because she wanted to do everything. In today's society, they're like, oh, you're just a soccer player, or you're going back to the word just. The coaches say, you have to only play soccer. You have to only do this. I really push my students to try everything and do everything because that makes them well-rounded and gives them a better appreciation for what they have, their talents that they have. So she's my female that I still look up to, without a doubt.
Yeah,
Wow,
I
that was,
saw
yeah.
her photos and I was just amazed at looking at like articles and photos about her. I didn't know about her before you told us about her, so thanks.
I mean, she earned almost $1 million back in the 20s and 30s in golf tournaments, which is totally unheard of these days because she was
Wow.
such an overpowering player. But she was a great person as well.
Yeah.
Over
Yeah,
almost 100 years ago, yeah.
that's awesome. Yes, we didn't know about her. Thank you for,
No
just like we
problem.
learned something
No
today. So
problem.
yeah,
I know I
right.
kind of stepped out of the boundaries of like I've watched previous of your shows and most of them are like very, very high profile novels and things like that and it's been I'm very blessed to have you guys appreciate little old me with my children's books. So it's important that I can get my word out as well. So thank you.
It is very important because I remember I met you on Clubhouse, and when you talked about your book in one of the rooms, I was like, this is a very interesting concept. I want to know more about it, and that's why I reached out to you. So
Yeah.
yeah, like right, like I mean, we're always looking for interesting books and some books that really make a difference, some authors, some people who really want to make a difference. So yeah, so that was like you want to do that, so definitely doesn't matter what kind of a book it is. So
And I
yeah.
did a search on Amazon for the title to make sure no one else wrote about it. And there was two smaller books, like children's picture books, that were similar. I reached out to the authors and I told them what I was writing and everything, and they're like, 100%, go for it. You know, yours a different direction. You're doing great. We'll support you and buy your book as well. So I was like, that's pretty cool that authors can support authors on that too, because I know there's some books that have similar titles and I didn't want to step on anyone's toes. I'm a first-time author. I kind of learn by doing and learn by making my mistakes and figuring it out from there.
Right. Yeah. And how was the like so you self-published the book, right? Like how was that? How was that process? Was it like really
It was pretty ezy. I did the ebook first, and I just did a PDF file. You download the PDF file with the cover, and I made the cover on Canva. I mean, I had a couple people help me, and then I had actually my daughter, who's going to be 15 next month. She kind of worked things around, and we talked about it. She was going to try to hand draw something. I said, no, let's do something different. And so I made the title on Canva, and then I just downloaded it. Excuse me, and then within 72 hours it was up and running. So I was like, awesome, you know. And then the hardest part though was making it fit for Amazon Kindle Direct Publishing. The 5x8, making the margins, but there's incredible YouTube videos out there where they walk you through everything. And it's like, I just sat there on the second screen and I'm going back and forth checking it. And then I would save it and try to download it. And Amazon would say, if this is right or that's wrong. And it was just, okay. And then everything fit. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm actually doing this, you know? And it's touching to me because I've never done anything close to this before in my life. And, you know, I always look at some people that are writers and they're like, you know, oh, it's no big deal. My college roommate sent me a message and he said, I would have never imagined back in 1991. He's a writer. He's an editorialist. He writes for newspapers, that you would have been the first one to write a book from the two guys that sat in our college dorm, you know, between the two of us. And, you know, I'm like, I just kind of went like this, and I'm like, I just do what I do, and that's just the way it is. I don't even think about stuff anymore. I just put the
right,
pedal to the metal and let me get through this.
I love
right.
that. Just skip the thinking part and let's get to doing.
Pretty much. I mean, I if I think about it, it's just going to sit there. So the biggest part is you just go out and do it. Write your framework, and then fill the framework in from there. If you don't, it's just going to stay an idea. And so I had like my phone next to me in the middle of the night, and I'd wake up and go, oh, let me add this. And then I'd come back when I had time and added it. And then it kind of fit in after that. I was lucky enough that I could just pop stuff in where I needed it and made it fit and made it work. So there
Yeah.
was a couple revisions that I had to do, and that was nothing. I mean, it was just, I was lucky to send it to my family and say, hey, look at this. What do you think first? And the majority of, like, my wife is in it, my stepkids are in it, little bits and pieces, included like a teacher, my 6th grade teacher's name is in it. That was like the biggest impact for me for school. I thought it was important. He was the main teacher in it. And I actually put like my surname in it as the principal. My surname is Pelletier. My grandfather changed it when he moved to the United States, and so I felt it was important to kind of slip something like that in, little Easter eggs. So little
That's
stuff
exciting.
like that, made up my own.
Yeah. And so Ryan, one more question that I had is, what is your next project? Are you going to take up another book? Do you have that in mind?
My next project, besides pushing this out to the elementary schools and to fathers advocate groups, I would love to probably get involved with some sort of middle school story revolving around PE. You know, everyone says, well, you could write a book on some of your adventures. I've had quite a few adventures. I always gravitate to students with special needs in my classes. And I have stories upon stories of, you know, I have one student in particular, we called him Boogie, and he called me Dookie. And, you know, I got Boogie to dance the whip and the nay-nay in front of the whole school, 1,200 kids, and everyone erupted. And it got on social media, and it got all these hits. And, you know, he's in 10th grade, 11th grade now, and he still, like, will Zoom me. His class will Zoom me, and he'll, he says, "Hey, Dookie," and the kids look at him and go, "Who are you calling Dookie?" And I said, "That's me. That's just who it is." But I have stories upon stories that my wife and family would be like, "Yeah, he comes home every day with a different story." And but I don't know what my next story is to write, but my journey is not going to stop. I'd like to get involved in more speaking, get involved in more, you know, leadership opportunities as well.
Right. Yeah, it could be like a collection of short stories of all of your experiences. That would be
Yeah, it
amazing.
already sounds like a title, right? The Adventures of Wookie and Dookie.
Yeah.
Wow.
For 3 years, we did a lot of fun. He would come down in the middle of the day, and like his teacher would wonder where he was, and I'd bring him back, and he'd go, "He was with me." And he, you know, but just the different stories. I must have about 300 to 400 pictures of him as well, because it's just the funniest things that he did. You just
Wow,
wanted
there
to
you
put
have
it in
it.
your pocket.
There's your book.
Yeah. So who knows? Who knows? But I do need a break from writing for a little bit, so I can get organized with school. It's pretty overwhelming right now.
Yeah.
Being back face to face and everything. So we're just getting our bearings. We've been in school for about 13 days, and it's been an adventure, to say the least. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to moving forward wherever that direction is. If it's virtual again, or if it's face to face, I'll keep going with it best I can. But it is kind of cool to walk around the library this past week, and the kids are like looking at books, and I'm like, "Hey, what do you think of this?" You know, and they're looking at it, and they're like looking at it. But I said, "Flip it over," and it has a picture of me on the back, and they're like, "Wait a minute, you wrote this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I did." And they're like, "Whoa, can I get it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you can sign it out," you know, and everything. And so there's been a little bit of a buzz going around school, so I appreciate it.
That's
pretty
cool.
They don't expect it. I kind of like to do things that are unexpected, and so I'll surprise people every once in a while with stuff.
And what is your favorite reading genre? Or like, actually, yeah, what do you read?
Growing up, it was sports books. And Hardy Boys, Encyclopedia Brown. I mean, that's throwing out some old names right now with books. But as I got older, I like biographies. I like a little bit of true crime. Lately, though, it's been a lot of things for educational leadership. I just read The Alter Ego by Todd Herman's, where it says everyone has a different persona depending on what they're doing. He used the example of Bo Jackson as a football player. When he would get on the field, his alter ego was Jason from Friday the 13th. It was just like, I'm going to storm through that line and I'm going to score a touchdown like the killer Jason, you know? So I do have alter egos depending on if I'm in school, depending on if I'm in clubhouse, depending on if I'm at home. I do incorporate that alter ego effect. And also Think Like a Monk by Jay Shetty has been huge for me. I've read that a couple times now. And but most of my other stuff is kind of geared toward education, geared toward how to make things better in my classroom, better for the school. But I'm always open for suggestions. I've steered away from fiction. I just kind of geared toward, if I have time to read, I'm going to listen, I'm going to soak in as much as I possibly can that will help me. So that's basically where I am.
Yeah. Yeah, I also like nonfiction better because I get to learn something and also but I have been getting, because of Daman, I have been getting into fiction a lot now.
Yeah.
And one of the books that I just finished reading, I was like, yesterday I finished reading it and I was reading it till 5 a.m. And it's a fiction book. And I was like, I was hooked to it. I'm like, I have to see what happens in the end. So, so it's a different kind of enjoyment. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I leave my podcast to like my fiction stuff, so I have a 45-minute drive to school every day, so that's where I usually kind of absorb in like true crime, or fiction and stuff like that, just stories to keep me occupied while I'm driving.
Right. Yeah.
So it's I would love to get involved in some fiction writing and reading more, but I so much on my plate. If I'm going to read something that's going to benefit me right now, it's not something for pleasure.
Yeah, it's also phases sometimes. Like I also go through phases, like self-improvement phase, I call it, like where you want to read just the books that actually benefit you. But then I also am a big fiction reader, so I get tired of that. Then I just dive into fiction, so I just go through it.
I'm surprised on Clubhouse they do have little book clubs, and that's what got me on the Alter Ego Effect. And we sat and talked about it, and it was interesting to get other people's viewpoints on it. It wasn't just like a reread or anything like that, and you don't get that opportunity to do that with other people, especially during the pandemic. And my librarian at my school was like, "Do you want a book club on your book?" I said, "No, let's just see what happens. Let's see what how kids act, and if they come back and they answer the questions or whatever, then let's figure it out from there. Let it grow organically, and then if something happens, I'd be glad to sit and talk about it." Because I've even offered the elementary schools to do Zooms. If they don't feel comfortable with me, having a large group, I could do it in the classrooms by a Zoom and do it during my planning period. And then I don't have to drive anywhere. It's just me showing up and asking questions. And it's more like getting my name out and getting out the story is more important to me. I mean, I want people to know that there are people that don't just do one thing. They're multi-talented. And you can do anything you want. Just got to do it. So,
yeah. Thanks for that message. That's a really great message.
No problem.
Yeah. Naman, do you have any last questions for Ryan?
Yeah, our closing question. So Ryan, what do you usually drink, since this is a happy hour? That's something I'd like to ask.
I'm a beer guy. I during the pandemic, I got way too involved in like Maker's Mark bourbon and things like that. So I had to slow that down a little bit, I think, because out of boredom. But if I had my choice, my dad used to drink Yingling lager, and so that's where I probably gravitate toward. Just an honor for him. But for the most part, it's the mixture of the two. Whenever there's a chance, I don't do it all the time, but when I can, I'll have a beer or two every once in a while.
Oh, nice! Yeah, I love beer too.
Yeah.
We picked a good drink for you then. We mix your bourbon and
That's
beer
right.
there.
That's right. I'm very happy now. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Ryan. And yeah, please let us know if we can, help you in any way to get your book out there. I'm definitely going to read it because I'm super interested in the story as well.
Well, fantastic.
I'm probably going to send it to a few people.
I love it. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Also, I actually am a big advocate for listening skills in people, because as an introvert, I feel a lot of people don't have that. Like you can, when you're quiet, you can see that how people just don't listen anymore. So yeah, I think it's an important book.
Well, it's even harder to listen now with a mask. I mean, I found that at school that you can't tell if someone's listening to you with that mask on because your facial expressions aren't present. So you have to start doing it other ways. You have to show those listening skills other ways.
Yeah.
And
I'm gonna send it to my husband. I think he needs some listening skills.
There you go.
Oh, we have a message too. They're giving 2 books tomorrow on Tuesday on Clubhouse.
And at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, we're going to do a kickoff show. And Andrea has graciously gotten a couple books that they're going to be giving out as well.
Oh,
and
that's
I think
amazing.
a little bit down the road, I'll probably do some giveaways as well, just to kind of gather interest. But my big thing is getting it out to the local elementary schools, because I want it in the schools more than anything else. It's a small amount of money for, helping other people.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
That's really great.
Yeah. And who knows, maybe they'll do it for other kids. They'll push it along.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
I
Well,
really
Ryan,
appreciate
best
the time.
of luck with your book.
Thank
We
you so
really
much.
hope it reaches more and more children. And on that note, cheers.
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 Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. You
Ryan.
have a great
Thanks for
weekend.
joining us. You
All right,
too.
be safe.